Ganch is a young, reckless man who lives off the money sent by his mother, who works in America. He sold his apartment, squandered all the money, and now lives in a rented place. Most importantly, he is a pathological liar and a glutton, which earned him the nickname Snake Oil back in school. This characterization is given by his former classmate, Sat, a young scientist working in the laboratory of a renowned professor. Professor immediately approves Ganch as a candidate for an upcoming experiment. At this moment, Ganch is enjoying the attention of a beautiful girl. However, his moment is interrupted by the arrival of Margarita, his landlord. Seizing the opportunity, Ganch skillfully gets rid of his unexpected companion by introducing her as his fiancée. Margarita demands that he pay for the previous month's rent. Ganch confidently claims that he is about to marry the daughter of a well-known and wealthy man, after which he will settle all his debts. Later, Ganch and his fiancée Melina are having fun at a restaurant when they are approached by Razmik, his creditor, who demands repayment of the debt. That everything will be settled once he gets married. Razmik lets him go. Immediately after, Ganch calls his associate and announces that buyers will come to inspect his karaoke cafe, which he hopes to sell for a good price. To create the illusion of success, he invites friends to act as customers, pretending the karaoke business is thriving and profitable. Ganch arrives at the cafe and explains the task to his friends, urging them to create the illusion of a lively crowd. Finally, the potential buyer arrives but turns out to be aware of Ganch's debts. Nevertheless, Ganch nearly manages to fool the man, but one of the actors accidentally reveals the truth. The buyer leaves. Later, Ganch is taken to a secret laboratory where the professor begins explaining the nature of his discovery. However, the somewhat dim-witted Ganch understands nothing. Tat steps in to clarify. Under the professor's supervision, they have created a one-of-a-kind female robot named Rosalie. Rosalie's body is nearly identical to that of a human, making her potentially indistinguishable from a real person. To finalize her humanization, the android must experience the full spectrum of human emotions. Ganch is tasked with living with her for 1 month during her testing phase. The man is shown the android, but he is disappointed by her appearance. Professor promises that, after an upgrade, she will be even more beautiful than a real woman. Additionally, Ganch will receive a handsome reward for participating in the experiment. Despite this, Ganch refuses, as he dislikes the robot and claims he is getting married in a month. The professor asks Sat to find another candidate, but Sat insists that Ganch will return. Later, Ganch meets with his fiancée's father, Shahen, who divides people into predators and herbivores. Ganch assures his future father-in-law that he is a hybrid. However, Shahen is convinced that Ganch is nothing but a rabbit who always manages to wriggle out of trouble. He initially struggles to accept his daughter's choice, but Milena declares that they are in love. Shahen demands that Ganch pay for Milena's wedding dress and, most importantly, be a loyal husband to her. Otherwise, he warns, there will be severe consequences. Ganch calls Sat and agrees to the experiment under one condition. Rosalie must be configured to his preferences. Sat drives to the karaoke cafe to finalize the confidentiality agreement with Ganch. Through all, no one must learn about this discovery prematurely. Rosalie is so unique that she could be worth tens of millions of dollars. And Sat knows that the Pakistanis are already interested in the technology. That moment, Ganch sees a beautiful girl entering the cafe and assumes she is Rosalie. He rushes to present her with flowers, but quickly realizes she does not match his expectations and criticizes her chest. Angered, the girl briefly robs him of his manhood. Sat apologizes to the girl, explaining to Ganch that he was mistaken, though Ganch has already figured that out. Then Ganch finally sees the real Rosalie and begins their acquaintance with a dance, which greatly impresses the professor. Later, Ganch brings Rosalie to his home. The robot immediately tidies up the place and serves him a delicious dinner. Afterward, Ganch decides to test her womanly unfabilities, but it turns out the robot is unfamiliar with romantic relationships. Ganch calls Sat, who admits that Rosalie's wedding night function has not been activated. They need Ganch to treat her like a real person, as only then will she be able to progress to the next level. Ganch must win her over, as he would a real woman. The man tries to court Rosalie, but she has already switched to standby mode. The next morning, Ganch heads to the bridal salon to buy a dress for Milena. However, at the entrance, he is stopped by Razmik, who is still waiting for the promised money. At the same time, Milena arrives. Upon seeing her, Razmik falls in love and offers to help choose the dress, pretending to be a designer. Together, they all enter the salon. This time, Rosalie gets into an elevator where Margarita and Ganch's neighbor are riding. Meanwhile, in the bridal salon, Razmik admires Milena's beauty. Margarita calls Ganch and scolds him for subletting her apartment. Realizing she is talking about Rosalie, Ganch asks Razmik to return the borrowed money. Not wanting to make a scene in front of Milena, Razmik reluctantly hands over a small sum. Ganch rushes home, persuades Margarita to wait a little longer, and introduces Rosalie as his fiancée. This moment, Zut calls Ganch, asking him to take Rosalie somewhere so they can observe how the robot interacts with other people. However, Melina texts to praise the designer, who turns out to be the creditor, Razmik. She is so impressed with his artistic taste that she wants his consultation on other items and requests that the money for her dress be sent. Just then, the elevator arrives on their floor and Rosalie returns. Ganch is unhappy that she went out, but she explains she went to buy groceries and shows him a card given to her by the laboratory. This immediately lifts Ganch's mood. He hurries to the store and buys Rosalie a bouquet of flowers. However, she doesn't understand their purpose. Ganch explains that men give flowers to women to express their feelings. Rosalie smells the flowers and admits that her vestibular circuit is spinning. This event is instantly recorded at the lab, and the scientists rejoice at the first instance of a synthetic happiness hormone being triggered by flowers. Meanwhile, Ganch takes Rosalie to a karaoke bar to meet a couple of his friends. Rosalie immediately joins a conversation about the cryptocurrency market, leaving the men speechless. When one of the friends' girlfriends mentions she loves Japanese poetry, Rosalie begins reciting Japanese verses fluently. Ganch has to lie, claiming she studied in Tokyo. One of the friends pulls Ganch aside, bluntly stating that he doesn't understand how such a woman could pay attention to someone like him. Ganch is a liar, drowning in debt, and even snores. He's not the kind of man someone would fall for. The friends leave, but Ganch and Rosalie remain unbothered. Their flirtatious glances are noticed by Razmik, who is outraged, believing Ganch is cheating on Milena. Ganch lies that Rosalie is a singer at his karaoke bar. Razmik doesn't believe him, but the robot steps up to the microphone and performs a beautiful, lyrical song. Realizing he cannot catch Ganch in a lie, Razmik leaves while Ganch melts at Rosalie's singing. Later, they stroll through the city, and upon returning home, Rosalie serves Ganch a Japanese dinner. She asks why people lie, and Ganch has to explain that life is hard. Rosalie argues that the world is based on mathematics, where lying is impossible. Ganch provides an example involving the resale of a car, but Rosalie quickly calculates the outcomes and exposes the lie. However, Ganch adds multiple personal reasons that cleverly mask the deception. Unexpectedly, Rosalie asks him to teach her how to understand lies. The professor is informed that Rosalie has just downloaded books on poker rules and the art of bluffing. At the same time Ganch teaches Rosalie how to play poker, and she quickly begins to beat him, the scientists observe the production of synthetic adrenaline. Ganch asks her to get dressed. The scientists notice that she has downloaded directions to a casino. To distract her, they activate the wedding night function. The robot immediately responds to this, commanding Ganch to follow her into the bedroom. Stunned by the prospect, Ganch forgets everything else. The neighbors notice the shaking of the house. And by morning, Ganch barely emerges from the bedroom. He calls Tsat, who promises to reduce Rosalie's intensity just as she finds Ganch again. However, at that moment, the function weakens, and Rosalie remembers they were supposed to go somewhere. Pair heads to the casino where Rosalie easily beats everyone. On the way home, Ganch, thrilled that people envied him for the first time because of the stunning woman beside him, kisses her. However, as they approach Ganch's home, they are met by Shahen, who has been informed that his future son-in-law was seen in a casino with another woman. Ganch lies, claiming Rosalie is his sister who just arrived from America. Rosalie plays along, and Shahen believes the story. Pair goes up to the apartment where Ganch confesses to Rosalie that he is getting married soon. Unexpectedly, the robot becomes upset, admitting that she doesn't want to part with him. Right now, she even feels like hitting him. The astonished scientists observe as Rosalie exhibits a full range of hormonal reactions, realizing that she is experiencing jealousy. That moment, the robot throws a statue at the wall to release her frustration. Then she hugs Ganch, astonishing the scientists once again as the wedding night function activates by itself. This indicates that Rosalie has truly become a real woman. Meanwhile, Ganch, after putting himself together, steps into the hallway only to find Razmik and his bodyguard sitting at his table. Razmik, having learned about Ganch's winnings, has come to collect his money. He orders Ganch to drop his tiger mask and face Milena like the rabbit he really is. The next day, Shaheen finds Razmik with Milena on his lawn. The men introduce themselves and Shaheen notes Razmik's business acumen. That moment, Ganch is serving breakfast to Rosalie when he receives a call from Shaheen. Shaheen admits that he was very impressed by Ganch's sister and asked to introduce them properly at a restaurant that evening. He is thrilled by the possibility of marriage and enthusiastically describes a future family tree to Ganch. Ganch tries to send Rosalie back to the lab, but she decides to meet with Shaheen, promising to resolve the issue. That evening, they meet at the restaurant. Rosalie impresses Shaheen with her deep knowledge of winemaking. Suddenly, Ganch sees Milena and Rosmike and steps away to confront them. Meanwhile, Rosalie brings up memories of Shaheen's late wife. Ganch, on the other side of the restaurant, tries to start an argument with Milena about her infidelity, but Razmik quickly takes control of the situation. Rosalie speaks of Shaheen's love and advises him to seek his soulmate. Razmik, meanwhile, subtly humiliates Ganch, promising to reveal the truth to Milena. Ganch panics and runs back to Rosalie, who calmly confesses that she told Shaheen everything. Returning home, Shaheen opens a photo album of his late wife. Milena enters and confesses that she loves another man and does not want to marry Ganch. In the lab, the scientists note that Rosalie has begun producing melatonin. She has fallen asleep like a real human. The professor, realizing their goal has been achieved, orders the robot to be recalled. The next day, Ganch settles his debts and parts amicably with Milena. At the karaoke bar, Shaheen announces to Ganch that there will be no wedding with his sister. Just then, Shaheen sees the singer working at the bar and instantly falls in love with her. Ganch buys flowers and rushes home, but Rosalie is nowhere to be found. He calls the lab where Tsat informs him that they have taken the robot back. Ganch begs to say goodbye to her. The scientists agree and set a meeting place. Ganch asks for Rosalie to come in a white dress. In the garden, Ganch asks Rosalie to run away and marry him. She refuses, explaining she isn't real and cannot have children, though she has learned to love. Tears fall from her eyes as she shuts down, deactivated by Tsat, who has already sold her. Ganch tries to save Rosalie but is overpowered. Razmik arrives to announce his engagement to Milena, inadvertently saving Ganch. When Byers sees Rosalie, she reactivates and fights to protect Ganch. Tsat aims a gun, forcing her to obey. But when Ganch breaks free, Rosalie shields him, taking bullets to the back. The police arrive, arresting the criminals. Time passes. Tsat is in prison. Shaheen starts a relationship with the karaoke singer. Milena and Razmik plan their wedding. The scientists launch a new robot. Ganch, now with Rosalie as his wife, drives her to the hospital. She is about to give birth. Arguing with the professor over the phone about their child's name, he doesn't notice the paramedic's shocked face upon hearing that the woman is a robot. The film ends here,